Okay, I'm going to start. It's 5:31. Today we're starting Nazir, right? And we're learning for the schus for anybody who needs refuah shlema, and we thank Hashem for the ability to be able to learn. I thank Rabbi Smith for the ability to allow me to teach today. And okay, and so I had two folks here, regulars, Hillel and Naftali, and Chaim's online, so we're starting with 3/10 of the Shtina. So we're gonna get started anyway. Okay, in lieu of introduction, we're gonna just remind ourselves what a Nazir is. Okay, a Nazir is a person who decides, and we'll explain the reasons we think he may decide to become a Nazir. The Nazir is a state where this person decides, by definition, that he will take on three things, which include actually not doing three things. One, he won't cut his hair, which doesn't really take much, that's passive. Two, he won't drink wine, have anything to do with any grape byproducts. And the third thing is he won't become tamei l'meis, impure for a dead person. Okay, so the Gemara starts. Kokinuyi Nazirus Kinazirus, a declaration of Nazirus, which means I'm a Nazir, all right? All equivalent terms for Nazirus are effective like Nazirus. Now, what does that mean? The Gemara will go and explain. We're talking about various nicknames, where they came from, whether or not the rabbis, I don't say made them up, but declared these are the names that are equivalent, or whatever will be discussed also later on in the Gemara. You may have a lot of questions today. Most of the questions I find are going to be discussed later on in the Gemara beyond Amud Beis. So Daf Beis. So if you ask those questions, say the Gemara will discuss it later on, right? Or the Mefarshim will explain it. By the way, Rashi on this side is not Rashi. He's actually, if you read the Rashi, where the Rashi usually is, it's a little bit different. We had that same thing in the Durham. In this case, the Rashi is attributed possibly to his son-in-law as one person. I forgot what his name was. But Tosfos seems to be basically Tosfos. Somebody else just came on, Moshe. No, Chaim, and then, yeah, Chaim and Moshe. Thank you, the Jew and family. And good morning. So what if he says we're going to give examples now of partial declarations as well? So we said, Kinuyi Nazirus Kinazirus, all right? Nicknames are like nicknames. And then it goes, Homer Ahei, or Ehei. He says, I shall be. What does that mean, I shall be? Maybe he wants to be a doctor. Maybe he wants to be a lawyer. Maybe he wants to be the Kohen Gadol, but he's not even Kohen. So what does that mean? It means if he just says, hooray, I want to be, it counts for he wants to be a Nazir and he's a Nazir. And the Gemara will explain the circumstances where he said that. Or he says, oh, hey, no, yeah. He says, I want to be handsome. I want to be gorgeous. I want to look like a movie star. Again, the Gemara will explain that it means that he wants to let his hair grow long and that he actually wants to be a Nazir too. Even though the declaration itself doesn't really explain that. Now they're going to mention some of the nicknames. Nozik, Naziach, Paziach, Harez a Nazir. If he said any of those three terms, he also would be a Nazir. Now, if you look closely at those three words and you think of the way a scribe, a sofer, Moshe could attest this, would write these words, they each contain within it pretty much Nazir or close to the word Nazir. That may or may not have anything to do with why the rabbis picked these three words. But if you look at Nazik, if you change a kuf to a reish, Naziach, the ches to a reish, Paziach, the pei could be made a reish. Now, it doesn't work exactly if you're a sofer, because some things really turn out to have to be written more like with a zayin, not a vav, and therefore it's not exactly. but I leave that this sofer. All right. So someone says Nazik, Nazir, Paziach, Harezeh, sofer. Those will also count. He says Hareini Misalsa. So we know that Lashon is used by Yosef, right? He was Misalsa Basaro. He would play with it with his locks of hair. He said that also counts, or that he will be a Nazir. If he says Hareini Mechalkel, all right, which is kind of a strange word, we don't know what it means at this moment. That also means he'll be a Nazir. Nazir, Harei Alayla Shlech Pera. He says, I'm going to grow dreadlocks. That's a Nazir. Harei Alay Tziparim. He says, it's upon me that I'm going to bring a korban of Tziparim, of birds. Now, the Nazir does bring at some point, a korban of birds. I believe that's at the end. I'm not totally sure. Find it out.
To get out of it.
To get out of it. Yeah. That's also, as long as Naphtali mentioned to get out of it, this is a commitment that's made for 30 days. There are Nazirs that are called Nazir Shimsha, Nazir Olam, the Gemara will explain later on, which are pretty much lifetime, for the most part, Naziris. Now, the Nazir we're talking about is a Nazir for 30 days, all right? And the only possible reason that might be elongated is if it becomes Tomei in the middle of the 30 days, then he has to bring 3 different korbanos, not the same 3 he gets out of it, and then he has to restart the count again. Almost sounds like a woman who's counting the 8 days of Nida, and then has some sea stuff and has to restart the count. And that leads to certain problems the Gemara will discuss. Rabbi Meir Omer Nazir. So Rabbi Meir says, for all these situations I mentioned above, he's a Nazir, Chachamim Amrim, ain't no Nazir. He's not a Nazir. And again, the Gemara will explain this below. Tana. So let's see. Mikdei, the said in Nashim Kai, the Tana's current point of reference is the order of Nashim. What does that mean? Remember, there's this, what do you call it? Zman Nakat, what's it called? When you memorize something by the letters. A mnemonic. It's not a mnemonic, it's, it'll come to me, whatever. It is Zman Nakat. So that's Zmanim, Moed, Nashim, Nakat, Zman, whatever it is. It stands for the Shisa Sidrei Mishnah, the 6 volumes of the Mishnah, and hence the Gemara. So when you think about Nazir really, I understand why it's in the Durim. Well, it should be. No, it's a korban involved. It should be in Kodshim. So why is it here in between the Durim and women? Nazir, what's its connection to women? My Tanya Nazir. So what reason does he teach the tractate Nazir? Who's he? We're talking about Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who is compiling the Mishnah. What does this have to do with women? Tana Koikai, the Tana's point of reference in the verse is the verse. So let's look at the verse in the Torah. Good morning, quiet please. You're late. So this is talking about the Sota. All right. It says, if he doesn't find favor in his eyes, meaning because he suspects her of adultery, all right, that, they bring up the whole Sota thing with putting Hashem's name and the Kohen writes it down on the paper. Those Sota thing will be learned. So what he's saying, Mika Ramla Avera. What cause, in other words, what is going on here? He's thinking the Nazir probably saw a Sota being punished. And when she's punished or going through this process, it's very degrading. They even reveal the upper part of her breast. The Kohen Gadol ties some reeds around it from Mitzrayim. There's whole explanations about this, all right? So it's a very degrading type of point. I would like to welcome both Yonatan and my lawyer, all right, Yitz, who showed up late. So please sit down. Oh, you're listening on Zoom? Okay, I'll test you later. All right. So when they see this, the guy might think to himself, oh, well, this is terrible. What got her to this point that all of a sudden she's suspecting? He says, well, you know what? She was Robbie drinking wine, got a little bit too smashed, was with the wrong company. And guess what? Yeah, this is a family share, and that's the problem. So therefore, he said, I don't want to get in such a situation. I'm not going to drink wine. Obviously, the Gemara will discuss whether or not there's a problem drinking wine. In this case, it's wine to excess, and obviously in the wrong company. We're not talking about a farbrengen or making kiddush or Abdullah or something like that, where it is a mitzvah. But so he says to himself, I don't want to have anything to do with wine. I never want to get to an embarrassing situation, something like that. Remember, Nazir could be a woman too. This could be a Nazira. All right. So either a man or a woman sees this situation. So that explains why this is found, all right, by Nashim, from this Manakat. All right. So now, next question. Pasach b'chinuyin, and obviously you might have said, well, why isn't it in the Durham? Well, it comes right after Durham. So it's like an Eder, but it needs to be close to Nashim, so it's in its perfect place. Pasach b'chinuyin mefarish yadas. Right. The Tan of the Mishnah opens with this statement. Remember, we said these are the nicknames, and we said, Nazir, right? But it says b'chinuyin naziris that these are like Naziris. All right. He didn't start off with the partial declarations. All right, which was I want to be like that, or I want to be beautiful, or any of those things. So Rabba says, he's Sema Kadi, and some say this was without attribution. All right. Kadi was, I think, the name of a certain Rav. Hold on. All right. The sage who he's not identified. Translates word Kadi as without, reflects the general consensus of the Rishonim. So it's a machlokas, but whatever. So it's by anonymous. All right. Chasari Kemexra, the Hachi Katani. It's really missing something in the text. And this is what the text really meant to say when it started the Mishnah. All right. Kol kinuye naziras k'naziras. All the nicknames of naziras are like naziras. The yadas, naziras, and the hands of naziras, just like the hands of a pot. Remember, you can't pick up a pot when they're talking about in those days, pot with a hand or tiny hands or whatever. It's like still picking up the pot. Nazir, the chol, vidas naziras can naziras. Hey, in other words, it was missing the latter part of the sentence. In which it wasn't a discussion, but this is one answer, but it was or handles, like saying the blah, 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 etc. So that's saying what was missing, words that were missing at the beginning of the Mishnah. So even according to the revised text of the Mishnah, the examples of partial declarations, which we just said, are listed before those of the equivalent terms, although the law concerning equivalent terms is given before the law of incomplete declarations. The Gemara now addresses this statistical problem, stylistic problem, excuse me. All right, Gemara. Why doesn't the Tana explain the equivalent terms first before explaining the incomplete declarations? In which we just gave one answer. We said it was really incomplete, equivalent terms and incomplete, and the incomplete were like so-and-so. In other words, it added like aha, I want to be beautiful, and all those things. All right. But he says, but why is it all of a sudden we go and explain the second things?
So we don't consider incomplete terms to be as if it's a vow?
No, we do consider it to be a vow. But but we do. But the thing is, the Gemara is mentioning A, and the Mishnah is mentioning A and then B. And then the Gemara goes to explain B before A. And we'll go into why does it explain B before A? So the first answer was kind of, well, B was really part of, it was missing in the text. It was it, but nonetheless, we're explaining B before A. So hold on, because all the answers will be here. Talmud Hudasalik. It is the style of the Tana the most recently mentioned this subject, Hahu Mefarish Bereisha, is the one he explains first. Thus, it's like last one in, first one out, kind of, all right. Thus, where there are two subjects to discuss, such as in our Mishnah, the last one to be mentioned is the first one to be illustrated. As evidence that this style is typical, the Gemara cites three precedents. So now the Gemara is going to try and bring you examples elsewhere where we have first one in, last one out, and to prove that. So he says, Keditzanon, B'meh Madlikin, Uv'meh Ein Madlikin. All right, that's a Mishnah. If you're in a non-Chabad shul, when we say Kegavna on Erev Shabbos, they say B'meh Madlikin. It's just, I mean, that's where it's found in the liturgy, in the davening, but it's a Mishnah. So what does it say? What can we light a lamp for on Shabbos, and what can't we light a lamp? This is the Mishnah, it says. It goes to explain what we can't light first. So we're starting with the second one. So he's given examples to support the fact that A, B, B, A, right? But another example of a Mishnah, all right, is when can we insulate hot foods on Shabbos? What can we insulate them with? And what can we not insulate them with? And then all of a sudden, we start in that Mishnah to explain the second one again, A, B, B, A. This is not the band Abba, so do not send me a text with a picture. All right, all right. Now again, a third example. What can the woman go out on Shabbos? What can't she go out? We learned this had to do with the ornaments, remember, with the Yerushalayim crown and things like that. Mefarish lo teitze isha bereisha. And again, the first thing they go is they explain B, what she can't go out. So he says, here we have three examples where the Mishnah expounds on the most recent, last one in, first one out, mentioning before going further. The contention that the last mentioned first explained this characteristic of the Mishnah's style is now challenged by the Gemara. Typical, right? As soon as we say one thing, sorry, someone's going to slap it down and say, I know something else. Now we're going to bring three of A, B, A, B. All right, but it's done. Then we learn, what can an animal go out and what can an animal not go out? All right, that has to do with carrying a burden on Shabbos. All right, what kind of gear can the animal have? And the first thing the Gemara is going to answer there, or the Mishnah is going to answer, is, the camel may go out with, in other words, again, it's A, B, A, B, just the opposite of the three examples we just gave. And then next one, there are those who inherit and bequeath nachlin below manchilin, all right, manchi below naslin, below nachlin below maschinim. Farish elu nachlin manchilin bereisha. Again, it's going to give several examples in that Mishnah, and where do we start? We start with the first one, all right. And then the third example to again negate or argue with the first three examples of ABBA is Eilam Tani Hachi Batani Hachi. Rather, in fact, did I give the third one? Rather, in fact, the Tana teaches either this way or teaches that way. Oh, excuse me. Did I give three? No, Nachla was one. The one before that was the animal, and the one before that was, I think,
stormy outside. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't remember anyway. Just look back because I just want to continue. Hello, Professor. All right.
We all came to this year regardless.
Okay, listen to this, show me.
Now,
Okay, please.
came all the way from Sinai.
Okay, so there are two examples that contradict. Oh, so that's why I can't find the three. There were only two examples that contradicted the assertion in the Mishnah of ABBA. We gave two examples of AB. All right. Before I continue, maybe this, we hear always in davening at the end when they say the Mishnayos, because this should come to your mind right away. The Mishnayos in davening, before they say that last Kaddish, hold on a second. because you hear this all the time. And you should ask that question. It's just another example. All right. So give me a moment here. I'm looking at my siddur. All right, here, Mishnayos. So it's talking about all the Mishnah. It starts, Yesh ma'alanis mikvah below puslin. There are those things that add to the mikvah without being poisolet. Puslin below ma'alin. Lo ma'alin, no puslin. All right, so it gives several examples. And then it starts, Elo ma'alin below puslin. So there it's an ABBA. So it's another example. So Gemara could have brought from all places. So obviously they're different. So now we got to go, why sometimes do we use ABBA? Why sometimes ABAB? Right, in fact, the Tana teaches either this way or teaches that way. And that's why examples of both patterns can be found. But the choice of the pattern is not arbitrary, as will be seen. So now we're going to see, we gave examples, but there's a reason why each one chooses one of those patterns. The Surah de Nafshehu, where the prohibition is a personal one applying to the person himself, which obviously is more endearing to the person. Mefarishi Surah de Nafshi Beresha. Then we explain the prohibition first, because the person does not want to do the Aveira. Right? So if it's a personal prohibitions are taken more seriously by people and therefore given priority by the Mishnah. For this reason, these Mishnahs discuss the prohibited situation first. The Gemara now explains why in the Mishnah about what animals may wear on the Sabbath, the time that does not give priority to the explanation of the prohibition, Kabe Behema, Bisuri, Aide Behema, Hudase, because the prohibition is on the animal, Mefaras Hetera, Beresha. The Mishnah explains the permitted situation first. So we use the prohibited first when it's regarding that there could be a prohibition on the person, and we use the permit one first where it's talking about a chefza. What?
The permitted?
In other words, when it says these are permitted and these are not permitted. This is what you miss by coming in 2 minutes late. Remember that.
No Musar,
Oh, no Musar, it's my buddy.
Go across the street.
I'm his, what do you call it? I'm his, what do you call, what am I?
You're my adopted father.
I'm Mashpian, his adopted father. It's right. I'm going to get the seat behind me, right? Okay. Yeah. He ain't going to show up late tomorrow. All right. For the rabbi. Anyway, so what were we saying? See what happens.
Are we on Ahmed Base? No.
We're about to start that right now. Okay. So, all right. So now, what was the last thing we said, Naftali? When I went to school.
We finish up the discussion about ABBA.
Right, and we said it depends what is more. If it's important to the person, then we start off with that first, with the non-permitted, the usher. And if it's not about the person, then we can start with the permitted ones first. All right. All right. Now the Gemara, top of Daf Yomi Warriors. All right. So he's going back to that second example where we deal with the people who inherit. All right. Mefarish Ika Nechala Beresha. The Tana explains the basic laws of inheritance first before discussing deviations from the norm. Is this appropriate to expand first on the first mentioned category, the one who inherits and bequeaths? It's interesting. If you read that, you might think, oh no, wait a minute. Inheritance is dear to the person. They want to get the money. Therefore, they should have the non-permitted ones first. So you might think it the other way. Help me with this one, Naftali. It's saying that was an example of where it was A, B, A, B. Wait, the second set of examples were the Behema, A, B, B, A. No, A, B, B, A, A, B.
ABBA.
All right, so
ABBA, and the second part was ABBA.
No,
They're not really important.
whatever, but you get the idea. All right, let's move on. Otherwise we'll be stuck in the mud. Ela hacha, here in our mission, first it can know ye beresha. So let the Tana explain why did we say all this? Because we want to say, let's start off with the nicknames first, because that's how you started the Mishnah. All right, the Mishnah says nicknames are like nicknames are just as well as saying I want to be a Nazir. But then it went into discussing, the partial declarations. Okay, Ela Hainotan. Rather, this is the reason. Yadas Ho Asyan Lei Midrasha. Partial declarations, since their effectiveness is derived from an exposition of scripture, meaning that there's a pasuk. Yafli Lindor Neder Nazir Lahazir Hashem. The word, if I read in English, if a man utters a vow, the vow of a Nazir to abstain for the sake of Hashem, the word lahazir, to abstain, is seemingly superfluous. In which it's mentioned twice. And therefore, because it's mentioned twice, we have to learn something from it. And what we're going to learn from it, we're going to learn about Yadas. So therefore, it's a more chashuv thing. And therefore, the Mishnah is going to go into that.
Does this answer why at the beginning of Mishnah it states like the handle, and then it explains like the incomplete? Like,
Yeah, that's what we're answering. Right, exactly.
because the handle is more important.
No, the handle is the excuse me. Yes, the handle is the yuds. Right.
I was going to ask, so there's like other vocabulary, or is that considered the partial declaration?
Yes.
Also, like
We're
nicknames?
going to discuss that, the nicknames. Right there. Chavivin lay, all right, is derived from, all right, and without Chavivin lay. So it's precious to the rabbis because they learned this out. It's like a Masorah, all right? So it's not coming from an argument, it's coming from a Masorah. Therefore, liftach behind Beresha. So the Tana starts off with them first. Why does the Mishnah begin with the statement about equivalent terms? All right. It should have begun with the statement about partial declarations, since they have priority. I don't know if that's what you just asked or not, but so you got to wait here. Gemara's going to answer. Taniki matchil maschil beikor korban. He begins with the basic sacrifice formula. And he explains the partial declarations first. Partial declarations is the aha, ahana, and things like that. Okay, because they're derived, we just said, from scripture, from learning it out from a pasuk, and therefore more precious. Right. All right. So now let's continue. The Gemara proceeds to the following case of the Mishnah. Ha'omer ehei harei nazir. If the guy says, I want to be like that, he's a Nazir. Dilma ehei b'tan this kaima. Maybe he wanted to say, I'm going to fast. Hey just means I'm going to be, right? I'm going to be in fasting. How do you know he means I'm going to be a Nazir? Shmuel answers, Amar Shmuel, the gunche a Nazir over Elefanav. It's a great answer. He says, you know what? A Nazir just passed by. He sees the Nazir pass by, and he says, I want to be. So it means, obviously, I want to be like that. All right? So that's the Gemara's answer. Lema kasava Shmuel. Shall we say that Shmuel holds yadayim shemim machichas lo havan yadayim? So does this mean that Shmuel holds that a yad that is ambiguous, like a hay, all right, is not a yad? Because he's saying the answer was, there was a case. The Nazir came in front of him. So if the Nazir came in front of him, therefore it wasn't really that ambiguous because it was situational. All right. So the question is, if Shmuel had held that even unclear partial declarations are valid, then the declaration as I shall be should be okay, even if a Nazir didn't pass by. The Gemara rejects this inference. Amru, Bisman Nazir when the Nazir is passing in front of him, Leika la sapuka b'milsa achrina. The declaration is still not absolutely clear yet it cannot be really confused with another matter. In other words, yeah, we know he's not talking about I want to fast, because what does that have to do? It's like Mayin and Shmita or Hasina. What does this have to do with that? All right, but it's made circumstantially while the Nazir is passing by. All right, about Vadai ain't a Nazir over Lefanav. But if the Nazir is not passing by in front of him, Amrina Dilma Hey Betanis Kamar, then we can still ask the question, maybe I want to be means I want to be fasting. So the Mishnah is to explain is referring to a case where Nazir was passing by and the vower made the partial declaration, I shall be. Gemara doesn't accept it yet. No. The Dilma Lefatro min Korbanos come up, but perhaps he meant only to exempt the Nazir from his sacrificial obligations and not adopting Naziris. In other words, maybe the guy, remember we mentioned at the end of the Mishnah, it's talking about birds. So maybe he didn't mean I'm going to be a Nazir that I'm going to have to bring a korban with birds, but he meant, you know what? I want to bankroll this Nazir for his korbanos. I want to support the kolel. I want to support this Nazir. And when it comes to his bringing the birds, I will pay for the birds so he could bring it. In other words, we still don't know 100% what he meant. The Kamar Belibo, the Mishnah must be speaking of a case where he says afterwards that he had in his mind to become a Nazir. So that's the final upshot of the Mishnah, that, you know what, he later on explained, no, listen, I said, hey, when the Nazir went by, or I said I want to bring the birds, but because someone goes up, what are you talking about? He says, I want to be a Nazir. So he explains it. If so, the ruling refers to a case in which the person subsequently made his intent to adopt Naziris very clear. My lamema, where is there, what is there to say? What's the point of the Mishnah teaching us something that's so obvious? The Gemara answers that without this ruling of the Mishnah, you might have said the inan pi v'libo shavim, that we need his words and his thoughts to coincide. Okay, literally his mouth and his heart. All right, his intent to adopt Naziris must have adequate oral expression to be a Nazir. You know what this reminds me of? What is it called? We had this when we learned about korbanos. If he's making a korban shlamim, but he's thinking about another korban, it's invalid. Right? What would Pigel? Is that Pigel? Okay, so that's what this reminds me of, like Pigel. I'm surprised that the Gemara doesn't mention.
When you're going to eat it, where you're
Well, whichever was, whether it's Pigel or something else, which we can't remember the term. There was a case where they're thinking of the wrong reason with the right korban, or the right reason with the wrong korban. All right.
So it's saying when a Nazir is passing by someone else and he has in mind that he's going to be fasting, he's passing by, that's an intimation that he wants to be a Nazir, and that's a vow.
No. We asked the question when he says, I want to be. How do we know that he wants to be a Nazir like that and not that he means, no, first he said, I want to be. So the question was, how do we know that meant he wants to be a Nazir and not, I want to be fasting? So the answer was, he saw at that moment, circumstantially, a Nazir was passing by. But then it goes on to expound further that he had to actually have it in mind, in his heart, not just, or as well as mention it. Kamash Malan, therefore, the Mishnah informs us that it is indeed a sufficient oral expression of the person's intent.
If there are circumstances that help to understand.
That's why the Gemara gave that example, because otherwise we would not have understood what Shmuel said or whatever we just took, whoever we just talked about. The Gemara.
Before we learned that it was about the intent, and then in this case, the intent has to be like along with the wording, like they both have to match.
Well, it's got to be, intent has to be in his mind at the time he said the wording. We might not find that out till later on, but that's what we're saying. That if he said, "I want to be," But when he said, I want to be, he didn't really want to be, even then it doesn't count. That's why the Gemara, it's a little tricky. The Mishnah gave the example of the Gemara of the Nazir going by, because we should understand, oh, Nazir going by, he wants to be a Nazir, and then later on he says to you, yes, I did want to be a Nazir. That's why I said that, not something else. My intent was the same as what I said. I'm very transparent. What you heard is what you're gonna get. Woo! All right. Hey, Nazir. He says, what if he says, I want to be handsome, a Nazir? Dilma and her lefana b'mitzvahs. Maybe he really meant this is kind of the same thing. Thank you. The same thing. Another example. He says, I want to be nice. All right, because he meant, oh, I have like nice long hair. I'm lucky to have much hair, but or low hair at this point. All right, v'dilma and her lefana b'mitzvahs. Maybe he really meant, like in the other case we said fasting. He says, no, I want to be beautiful as far as mitzvahs are concerned. I want to have my mitzvahs beautiful. Kedetanyas was taught, this is my, we're giving a pasuk from Shmas. All right, this is my God, and I will beautify him. How do we do this? And halafan of mitzvahs, I'll beautify him the mitzvahs. All right, as halafan of sukkah na'eh, I'll make a beautiful sukkah. Lulav na'eh, I'll get a beautiful lulav. You know, tzitzis na'eh, I'll have beautiful tzitzis. Echtav lafan of sefer Torah na'eh, I'll have a sefer Torah, or I'll write it, or I'll have it written beautiful. But echrenu b'shiurim, and I wrap it in beautiful silks. All right. So, in other words, again, just like we use a fasting example here, we're saying you don't know 100% what his intent was in his mind when he says, I want to be beautiful. All right. Shmuel says, Shetafas Piso. When he said that, he was, like doing, like you see someone with the long hair, or guys with payas or beards. He was playing with his hair. So his intent, he was trying to show you, I want to be beautiful with my hair, just like the Nazir is beautiful. Now, I don't know about you, but, I think of a Nazir as a guy with dreadlocks, or someone who's a Rastafarian, if he's a Nazir Olam, a Nazir Shimshon, and his hair's dreadlock going all the way down to the floor. It's,
I recommend you not go to Jamaica then.
Okay, all right.
Very confused.
But beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, all right? So, I mean, that could be very beautiful. And some people I know have beautiful dreadlocks too, So, again, the idea was he was trying to show that if I grow my hair long, that's how I can be beautiful. So now the Gemara is going to raise a new question. Nazira milta d'avera. A Nazir is a sin. What do you mean? We're supposed to make kiddush on wine. We're supposed to make Abdallah on wine. We're supposed to make brachas on wine. All right? We're supposed to keep short hair. There shouldn't be a problem with tefillin. We're supposed to go do levaya for a mace and a mace mitzvah. And this guy can't do any of these things. So how can you say that he's doing something beautiful for Hashem? He's doing things that are a sin. And we want to call this is handsome. And that brings us to page 3, which we're not going to learn today, so I can get ready for davening.
I want to know, listen to people you know.
Very clear, good pace. Shikaya.
Okay, take it easy. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Very good. Shikaya.
Good, Dr. Stein.